Welcome everyone to the day 2 of ETRetail Shopfwd Summit. Today we are starting the day with Mr. P. Venkat of Trent. He will take us through the journey of Trent and how it has evolved in the last few years. Welcome, sir.
Faizan, thank you, and please call me Venkat.
Will do. So, if you can just take us through the journey of Trent in the last few years and how the fashion landscape has changed in these years.
In many ways, the journey of Trent actually started 25 years back, at least in retail. Uh, it was actually an acquisition of Liquid Little Woods. It was a one-store operation in India, in Bangalore, which then was rebranded as Westside. And with Westside, uh, Mr. Noel Tata decided that we are going to go private label in those years. And it was not necessarily the in thing. And if we fast forward, we have essentially played to the same rule book of saying we'll be own branded with our offerings. Yes, it'll mean that it's slower. Yes, it'll mean it'll take time, but we will persevere. And that kind of choices where it's not easy, but it plays to a certain outcome years later if you stay with discipline, has been pretty much the approach that Trent has taken with all its choices, or most of the significant choices, including in the recent years. And one of the things I would call out, Faizan, is we don't distribute. We don't sell on any third-party platform. We don't sell through any third-party store. And it's a choice. Now, that again means you have a slower uptake to start with, but then you hopefully are in better control of the customer proposition. So that's the kind of approach that we continue to take.
But do you think you are missing out because you don't sell on third party and on online platform as well?
I guess it's a perspective. Yes, you're missing out on this year's sales, but then it's a choice. If you turn around and distribute through any third-party platforms, then the ability to turn around and be completely in control of the customer experience is to that extent compromised. So we do prefer that from our perspective, being in control of distribution helps.
And could you talk about the Zudio as a brand as well? It has become a hotcake in the last few years. How it has evolved and what was the initial thought behind it?
Actually, Zudio wouldn't exist but for the fact that Westside exists. Zudio, in fact, like I was mentioning to you a few minutes ago, is not a brand that started 2-3 years back. It was actually the apparel offer inside the Star hypermarket that was rechristened and branded as Zudio, and well over 10 years back. So it's taken a lot of time and changes and tweaks and improvements for Zudio to be where it is today. And in many ways, Faizan, I would argue that Westside and Zudio are both playing in the value fashion space, and they're with different price points, different product proposition, different fashion proposition, but they're joined at the hip. They're completely integrated at the back in so many different ways. And we continue to evolve the brands, basis what we think is relevant for the customer. And think about it. Zudio of today is not where Zudio was 3 years back. And I guess given all the change that's happening in the consumer space and the expectations of consumers, I would bet that if we are static, we would probably hurt ourselves significantly. And 3 years from now, Zudio should be very different from where it is today.
So what exactly has clicked for Zudio?
I think we've made some difficult choices. Again, consistent with what we think is a playbook which works for Trent. It's not the only playbook. One, we said we will turn around and keep costs down in every way possible and try and pass on all of that benefit to the customer. So whether it is in terms of rentals, whether it's in terms of location choices, because it also significantly influences rentals, whether it is in terms of choices like no advertising. We don't advertise. Yeah. We don't have any sponsorships. We don't have any celebrity endorsements. We don't necessarily do any online at all for Zudio. Westside is online, but Zudio is not even online. So a lot of this is about keeping complexity down and costs down, which you're trying to put your best foot forward in terms of giving value to the customer.
So then how difficult it is to get the space because you are trying to keep the cost down, but the cost of the real estate is very high.
It is high, and I guess it is difficult. Yet, I do think there are enough players in the real estate space who see value after a point of saying if a brand can get footfalls to a location, it is valuable to the player for their own sake. So they're not necessarily doing us a favor. Hopefully, they're making choices which do themselves a favor in terms of driving walk ins. And if you pull together a collection of brands which drive walk ins, hopefully, the medium term, the value that gets added to that property is substantially more than just getting a higher rupees per square foot on day zero.
So, but with the success of Zudio, do you think value format is the way forward for you as a company and for the industry as well?
I'm not so sure, Faizan. I would bet, as I said, both Westside and Zudio are value at different price points and different propositions. They have a positioning difference. Yet, India is a very big market, very diverse market. And take any wardrobe, and we have several of us in this room. I just can't see why one brand dominates the wardrobe. The customer is very much in the kind of space that we operate in, open to having multiple brands, and at various points in time, she will choose different brands. And that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have a role to play. So we want to have a role to play, and we're very biased at that. Yet, I do not think it is an exclusivity that we can chase.
And Trent, as a brand, how are you trying to tap the Gen Z through the digital approach or any other means? Because that's the biggest shopper these days. They are
indeed the biggest target for many brands. And we continue to be focused on saying, how do we get relevant for them? That said, take, for instance, this whole bit around not being online.
Yes.
I think we need to be true to the brand choices that we are making. And you will not be everything for everybody. And therefore, we are making choices. And that's true about Gen Z as well.
But how exactly you're doing it?
So, for instance, one of the things that we want to do with Zudio, because real estate enables it, playing with 7, 8, 9, 10,000 square foot stores, you can be very proximate. So what you're not offering by giving the convenience of being online, you're offering by being the convenience of being physically present in multiple micro markets. And that allows for a certain amount of reach and relevance, which possibly is not given. For instance, take Westside. Westside will be slower in terms of expansion because we want to do 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 square foot stores, and automatically the real estate availability for the quality that we are expecting is so much more challenging than with Zudio. So is Zudio relevant at 7, 8, 9, 10,000 square feet? I would bet yes. And can we be relevant by being proximate? I would bet yes. And is that proximity helpful vis-a-vis online? I would again bet yes.
So my next question was on Zudio versus Westside only. Within a short span of time, Zudio has overtaken Westside in terms of area square feet. So has Westside taken the back seat, or is it difficult to open Westside versus Zudio?
I think it is not Westside or Zudio for us, at least internally. I can speak for ourselves, and I've said this in multiple forums as well as in our annual report and discussions with shareholders. It is A and B, not A or B.
Okay.
And actually, Zudio is building on the platform, the same platform that Westside is built on. So it's very integrated at the back and very differentiated in certain customer-facing aspects.
Okay. You said that you save a lot of cost for Zudio and also for Westside. But what are the innovations you have done for the physical store? Because everyone is talking about online, but you are mostly in the physical space.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the bits that we've moved on is using things like RFID. So literally you can go to every store, and I can share this in this forum because you can go to the store and pick up a tag, and every tag is an RFID tag. Now, one of the calls that we have taken, it's apparent when you go to the stores, is we will do the customer-facing aspects of RFID the last. But you can do a lot of the back end much easier, much faster, because you're using technology to enable it. So instead of chasing the brag right of using technology, I guess it's possibly plays to our culture that we use technology to accelerate whatever objectives that we are otherwise chasing for the customer.
You said that in the next 3 years, Zudio will not be the Zudio it is currently. Do we see online presence as well?
I would probably tell you once it's launched.
Okay. But when you said that it will not be the same Zudio, what do you mean by that?
No, in terms of whether it's the product proposition, whether it is the supply chain, the way we are organized, whether it is in terms of the the value proposition that we are seeking to deliver, whether it's in terms of presence. For instance, we last year we added about 203 stores to the portfolio. I think we'll probably have much more presence. One thing I can happily share is, do we in 3 years expect to have far more presence and far more micro markets which are far more proximate to more of our target audiences? I would bet yes. Are we going to be in far more tier 2, tier 3 markets? I would bet yes. So is it going to remain in the form and format that it's currently today? I would think the customer is evolving and we need to change and make it more interesting for the customer in the years to come.
So will Zudio become more tier 2, tier 3 brand or it will remain in tier 1 as well?
I think we would probably want to play to any customer who is seeking to get fashion at a great price in a nice environment. And that's what we think about. That's what is relevant for the customer, whether it's Zudio, whether it's Westside, or any other brands that we seek to pursue from a Trent portfolio perspective, will probably play to the same playbook, because it works for our culture that we make the similar choices. So whether it's own branded, whether it's no distribution, whether it is being really sharp on costs and related choices, I think we'd probably play to the same theme. And if we play to the same theme, possibly tier 2, tier 3 also become very interesting. And there are enough markets, starting from the apparent ones to the not so apparent ones, that India is changing quite rapidly in tier 2, tier 3 towns.
Yeah. And the retail industry overall is not doing so good in the last 6 to 9 months. So are you also facing it, and what are the challenges you see in the next few months or years?
It's always difficult to make near-term visibility work and bets work. I think the longer-term, medium-term outlook for the space continues to be very interesting. And notwithstanding a good quarter, there's no promise that the next quarter or the following quarters will be good. I don't think so. You can extrapolate. And the same thing is true about a not so good quarter. I don't think so we can extrapolate. So I would assume, from an industry perspective, I don't think things have gotten worse from what we have seen in the last year.
Okay.
And maybe it's not gotten significantly better either.
But what are the challenges you see?
Extremely competitive market. We today in this space, the customer is spoiled for choice. The number of brands, look at the number of DTC brands
D2C
online,
brand, yes.
and the amount of change that they can bring to table in terms of product proposition, the value proposition, and the whole pitch of saying you don't need to solve physicality is competition. And at the end of the day, and the intensity of competition is real. Yet, I guess there is a very large market. We have 1.4 billion people, and everybody is a customer at some level. And to that extent, the opportunity is huge. My personal bet, if you leave the bias out from a Trent perspective, is there'll be multiple brands that will succeed at scale, and hopefully we'll be part of that game.
So you don't see D2C brand or anyone else as a challenge for the Trent or Zudio?
I would bet we should assume that everybody is a challenge, and we should work hard for the customer, and hopefully we'll make a difference.
Right. Thank you. I would like to take some questions from the audience as well, if they have. Anyone wants to ask anything? Yeah, please give the mic to him. If you can first introduce yourself and then ask the question.
I'm Mayur Kulkarni. I'm into a consultant of fashion supply chain, basically to e-commerce brands, small ticket orders and all. I get it executed through my factories. My question is that how you marry the aggressive pricing and the quality. Quality, if you want to give the quality, then pricing has to be there. But how in Zudio you manage the pricing and quality both?
I think there is a certain minimum level of quality which is not negotiable for the customer. But instead of compromising quality, you can eliminate other costs and drive efficiencies. And therefore, pricing is not only a function of product cost, it's also a function of other choices that you make. Now, is it doesn't necessarily need to be right for all of the market. It's just right for the brand that you're seeking to operate with. So, for instance, I mentioned earlier when I was conversing with Faizan that Zudio does not have any online presence. We don't sell online. Now, the returns in online, as you'll be well aware, are much higher. And it's not to say that the model is not relevant. It is very, very relevant, but it brings with it complexities and costs which are different from operating a physical store, and we make choices. So if we make choices which is beyond just product quality, I think there is still money to be taken off the table which you can pass on to the customer, and which probably is relevant for the brand if the brand is making those choices.
Anyone else? Can you give mic to him at the front row?
We spoke about Westside and we spoke about Zudio. I understand Trent operates in both these markets. What about the luxury market? Does Trent go after the luxury space also?
We've started a brand called Samo. We have 3 stores, all of 3 stores in the country today. It's a bit more premium. It's positioned to be a bit more elevated in terms of the value proposition. It's Indo-Western and its handwriting. Yet, I do not think we have the culture, the organizational culture, which allows for us to do justice to anything premium to luxury. And therefore, we have generally stayed away from playing in that space. We have preferred to play in the value space. Value doesn't necessarily mean an absolute low price point. It is relative value that we are chasing. In fact, I've heard, colleagues mention it, as well as some of the investors mention that actually you guys end up being premium by the fact that you don't discount, promote, offer.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat sir. I think the time is up, and anyone want to ask anything, they can ask on the sideline.
Thank you very much, Faizan. You've been very interesting.
So thank you for the insight about the tent. We don't hear from you much, so thank you for being here.
I think you should credit your colleagues for twisting me into participating. So I'm very happy to be here and very happy to be conversing.